Good evening. Our top story tonight: a jury has ordered the NFL to pay nearly $4.8 billion in damages after ruling the league violated antitrust laws in their partnership with DirecTV, where they provided out of market games through the Sunday ticket package. We'll discuss this case, the latest in Nick Chubb's injury recovery news, and we'll also discuss how Rich Paul's actions with LeBron James Jr. in the NBA draft this past weekend could influence NFL prospects in NFL drafts to come. And we will wrap up the show talking about the latest in the Brandon Aiyuk trade rumors. And this all starts right now on Player Profiler today. Good evening, Player Profiler Nation. I am your Saturday evening host, Matt Babich, here to bring you the latest in the NFL news. So a big story to close out this week is the latest in the NFL's antitrust class action lawsuit, and the jury based out of Los Angeles has ordered the NFL to pay nearly $4.8 billion in damages after ruling the league violated antitrust laws in their partnership with DirecTV, where they provided out-of-market games through the Sunday ticket package. The violation of the antitrust laws were that NFL and DirecTV worked together to provide inflated prices for their product because of the lack of competitors for out-of-market games on cable television and providing these games through a single service, which was having cable through DirecTV, was also in violation of the antitrust laws. So who does this impact? This impacts millions of Americans all over the country that paid for the DirecTV NFL Sunday ticket package. And it also affects thousands of commercial customers as well who bought these packages for their restaurants, their bars, whatever it may have been. So the jury awarded $4.7 billion in damages to the residential class, that being the me's and you's of the world. And they also ruled $96 million in damages to the commercial class. So according to this article written by an unnamed author at NFL.com, since the damages can be reportedly tripled under federal antitrust laws, the NFL could be liable for $14.39 billion when this is all said and done. Now, from what I gather right now, it is going to stay at the $4.8 billion mark, but this is apparently a potential outcome based on antitrust laws. So as of now, the NFL does plan to appeal the verdict and are already going through that process with the judge of the current case. So they are appealing to this judge, and depending on that ruling, either that judge sides with the jury and with the prosecution, or this whole case kind of gets flipped on its head. But what's most likely going to happen is that the NFL is going to have to appeal to a higher power. So in these kind of class action lawsuits, a lot of times what happens is there is a chain of command that they kind of have to go towards. So if the NFL were to further appeal this case, which it appears they have all intent of doing, they will go to the 9th District Court of Appeals in San Francisco and hear their case out there. If they lose again, they can reportedly appeal that decision once again, and this could go as high as the Supreme Court. So this could go a long way. This could take a lot of time. The article quotes the league saying, quote, "We are disappointed with the jury's verdict today in the NFL Sunday ticket class action lawsuit. We continue to believe that our media distribution strategy, which features all NFL games broadcasted on free over-the-air television in the markets of the participating teams, and national distribution of our most popular games, supplemented by many additional choices including Red Zone, Sunday Ticket, and NFL Plus, is by far the most fan-friendly distribution model in all of sports entertainment." I mean, you and I both know that's a load of bull. They know they're in the wrong, but they see this price tag and they don't want to pay it. They're going to do everything they can to not have to pay it. So this lawsuit covers 2.4 million residential subscribers and 48,000 businesses in the United States who paid for the package of out-of-market games from 2011 to 2022 on DirecTV. The lawsuit claims the league broke antitrust laws by selling the package of Sunday games at an inflated price. And subscribers also say the league restricted competition by offering Sunday Ticket only as a satellite provider. So should the NFL end up paying damages, it could cost each of the 32 NFL teams around $450 million. So this is going to float down to each individual NFL team who will be responsible for paying their share of the lawsuit, which is a pretty massive loss for some of these teams. Yes, these owners are billionaires. They make so much money every single year, but forking over $440 million, $450 million is sure to cause some disruption. So the appeal verdict could come out within the next few weeks, which could wipe all this out. And as I said before, they can continue to take this up the chain. So what should we expect going into next season? Are we going to see any change? Well, an article from Reuters says that the verdict does not usher in any immediate changes for fans. Lawyers for the plaintiffs could ask the court to issue an order that's aimed at opening up competition for Sunday Ticket and lowering its price. That, as of right now, appears to be the only thing that we can do. The plaintiffs, for example, have argued that individual teams can negotiate their own broadcast deals for out-of-market games given the high demand for pro football programming. Again, coming from this article from Reuters. So get ready for a long process here. This is a hefty bill the NFL surely does not want to pay, and they will keep dragging this out as long as they can until either a court finally sides with them or they're finally forced to pay the damages. So it's likely that we're not going to see any changes this year or in the short term at all. But it does look likely that the NFL is going to be held responsible for this price fixing case in allegiance with DirecTV. And this is an all-around win because DirecTV Sunday Ticket, I've never been a purchaser, but from those who I know who have purchased it, constantly complain about how expensive it is. And you think about it, there is zero competition. There's nowhere else you can go besides DirecTV Sunday Ticket to get access to out-of-market games unless you're going to illegally stream it or you're going to take the bits and pieces that a broadcast like Red Zone provides. So there's no competition. The price is astronomical. And surely they're making money hand over fist in these deals because they're already getting millions upon millions of dollars from the local broadcasts. Let's take a Bears game, for example. The Midwest broadcast in and of itself brings in millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. And then you bring in millions of people who are paying outrageous amounts to watch every game. Well, that's a lucrative scheme because myself, anybody who watches NFL, no one's watching all 16 games at once on different screens as a residential viewer. Maybe some of you sickos out there do that, but very few people do that. So this is an incredibly lucrative scheme from the NFL. I think we've all known for quite some time that this is what was going on, and kudos for the prosecution in this case for not only getting the victory, but for even bringing this case to light and fighting for the residential subscribers. 48,000 commercial subscribers really isn't that substantial, but 2.4 million regular Americans have been impacted by this. And from the math, I'm don't quote me on this number, but this is just from conjecture that I've seen online. There's a potential based on the damage amount and the amount of subscribers currently quoted that after lawyer fees, you could be looking at around $800 if you're somebody who's been impacted by this Obviously, that's going to probably vary based on how long you've had Sunday Ticket, how many years you paid for it. But if you've been a long-term subscriber, if you were in it in 2011 all the way through 2022, you could be looking at a pretty decent refund here. So kudos to the prosecution for getting this going, for getting the win. And as of now, I fully expect the NFL to be held responsible at some point when this all comes to a close. It could be for another year, maybe even 2 years, depending on how far they're allowed to drag this out. Next, we will talk about Nick Chubb's injury recovery. So we're finally starting to get some detail behind Nick Chubb's injury. The team has gone dark on us for quite some time. Truthfully, ever since when he got injured, the next thing we heard was that he had surgery. And then after surgery, we haven't had a single news clip nor a social media post for months. And as of right now, Nick Chubb is still getting drafted fairly highly in fantasy drafts, but he is going right behind Jerome Ford. We may see that start to change after the news that we received. So it did come out recently that Nick Chubb was standing 2 hours after surgery, which is remarkably impressive, no matter how minimally invasive the procedure. And allegedly, his surgery was only an ACL repair and not a full reconstruction. And we'll share a tweet about Nick Chubb's recovery here from a physical therapist, Dr. Jeff Mueller. If I can get the screen to record, here we go. So we'll take it by showing the video.
Move. Hold contact.
On one leg, jumping back and forth, working on his stability. I mean, I'm no doctor, but just from my perspective, this looks impressive, right? He's maybe 6 months, 7 months from his ACL surgery. So being able to do this 7 months in is very impressive. So we'll read Jeff Mueller's thoughts here. So number one, Nick Chubb is 7 months and 13 days out from his ACL surgery. He has about 2 months to keep training before week 1. This is great progress, working single leg stability and dynamic control, explosiveness, deceleration, stability, lateral movement. If an athlete regains dynamic stability and change of direction, control, and acceleration, deceleration, production seems to follow. Brain knowing where limb is in space is key for sport activity return. If he did actually have an ACL repair and not reconstruction, his timeline bumps up by months. Think Zach Ertz repair versus reconstruction, December to August return. This would shift the likelihood of playing from November all the way up to September. So yes, there's actually a decent chance he is active week 1, which would allow him to return closer to full form in football activities mid-season versus a mid-season return that would lead to return to full form closer to December. Kevin Stefanski did recently hint that Chubb was making very good progress. And finally, an addendum. This is more of a maybe he does return sooner than we expect. Not sure how good it is for fantasy, given we know he has minimal receiving upside. But could he give us a 2023 Gus Edwards type season? It is on the radar now. So great words from Jeff Mueller, essentially saying, look, if what we're hearing is true, and he's already doing this single leg stability rehabilitation, there is a chance that Nick Chubb is active for a majority of the season and at full form closer to the fantasy playoffs. So given his age and his injury history, I am by no means expecting Jerome Ford to completely go away. I do expect this to completely obliterate Donta Foreman by the middle of the season. So by the time Nick Chubb starts getting into form, Donta Foreman is going to be a ghost in this offense. I know it's been a strategy to kind of take him as a late round flyer in best ball, but I think now with what we know, that's fool's gold. Maybe you get a few spike weeks in the early weeks before Nick Chubb's back, but if he is active close to week 1, it's going to be hard for him to get on the field in any sort of major way. You're looking at 4 touches, 2 touchdowns to get into your underdog lineups. So we're pulling a full stop on fading Donta Foreman after this news. We are not done buying Jerome Ford. I think from what we know in this offense, it is possible for two backs to be utilized and at least one be fantasy relevant. So Jerome Ford's price in the RB40s on underdog, I'm still willing to buy. And now I'm going to be sprinkling some Nick Chubb into before the ADP starts to rise. It hasn't quite felt that drag effect yet after this positive news, but at RB40, he can provide some pivotal spike weeks. If he's going to be 100% during the fantasy playoffs and you go with an RB heavy lineup that has Nick Chubb in there, that could be a skeleton key in best ball drafts because he's been such a full fade. I'm just getting distracted by these Facebook comments that are coming in. I'm obviously not going to put these. We got to stop streaming the Facebook. This is ridiculous. But Nick Chubb, ahead of schedule in recovery, likely going to be active near week 1. So PUP list may be off the table. So if that's the case, Nick Chubb is getting closer to be a target in fantasy drafts, especially in best ball where it's a tournament style, exposure based, all about upside. In seasonal leagues, I am still way out on Chubb because of what Jeff Mueller brought up, limited receiving upside in a backfield tandem with Jerome Ford, not very desirable. But as a best ball candidate, he is absolutely worth a shot now that we know what we know about him. We are going to be back with more NFL news after this word from our sponsor.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
Go get it right now. We are back with Player Profiler today. I'm your Saturday host, Matt Babich. We're going to have an interesting topic now up next. So as I was scrolling through the news in preparation for this show, I noticed an article by Mike Florio, and generally, when I see articles by Mike Florio, I get ready to laugh because, I mean, quite frankly, he writes some of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, but he also has a lot of merit. He is where he is for a reason, and this article is actually very interesting. So to set the stage, I'm going to take you to the NBA draft, and if you're not an NBA fan, I'm sure you still know who LeBron James is. So LeBron James is playing on the Los Angeles Lakers, and his son, LeBron James Jr., was in this weekend's NBA draft. Now, LeBron James Jr. is by no means a coveted prospect. He didn't even average 5 points a game. I don't even think he averaged more than 5 points or 5 in any major category in basketball. So he's not very good in terms of a college prospect. But Rich Paul, in order to get LeBron James Jr. on the Lakers, told teams during the second round that if they did draft LeBron James Jr., that he was going to not sign a contract and go play in Australia instead. So he decided to hold teams hostage. And so Mike Florio wrote his thoughts on Rich Paul's comments to NBA teams. And one thing to know before we get into what Florio said here is that one note on why this worked is that very few teams were interested in LeBron James Jr. to begin with. So these teams got put in this situation where if you want to call our bluff and draft LeBron James Jr. to hold us hostage, then he's not going to sign. You're going to waste a draft pick. He's going to go to Australia. We're going to figure out a way to get him on the Lakers with his dad. So it's a power play. It's a power play coming from the worst prospect in sports that we've seen. Like, we've never seen a prospect in sports this bad try and pull a move like this. But Florio does make some solid points, despite the fact that we've never seen an NFL prospect of this caliber, or lack thereof, ever pull this off. And nor could they ever pull it off in the NFL. This is not something that a 4th round pick or later could ever swing in the NFL, even 2nd or 3rd, most likely. But Florio in his article says, as more players who are making more money in college make it to the draft, they'll become less bashful about telling teams how it's going to be, about bucking the outdated notion that it's, quote, an honor and a privilege to be on the wrong end of the pro football Harry Potter sorting hat, sent to a place they don't want to live to play for a team they don't want to join. So while there have been very few major power plays in NFL history, the idea of collegiate players who make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, becoming less reliant on an NFL payday isn't so far-fetched. These players are coming in wealthier than they have ever been. And quite frankly, not to get into the whole discussion, but I love it. These players power millions upon millions of dollars through their profession, and they should get a piece of the pie. And so now a 1st round pick, a Caleb Williams, who's made millions of dollars on NIL money through 4 years of college, potentially, doesn't need to go to a franchise like the Giants, who's completely dysfunctional. He has enough money to potentially retire for life, be set for life, maybe work a mid-level sales job for 10 years just to pad the income. But these players aren't going to need an NFL payday. So I doubt this is something that becomes common. This is never going to be the normal in the NFL draft. We're not going to see players just forcing their way to different places because they can and because they have money. But I'm certainly not going to be surprised the next time this happens. And I'm not going to be surprised when the first big-time quarterback prospect tells the team, no, I'm not going to come play for you. It's going to happen. And again, it's been such a thing that's been so rare. That's not going to change. But for what it's worth, I agree with Florio's sentiment in this entire article, which is that greedy franchise owners do nothing but profit, and some of them do nothing but produce shitty teams. They don't invest into their facilities. They don't invest into their organization. They play too big of a hand in who's in the roster, who's on the coaching staff, and their teams suffer. See what Dave Tepper has done with the Carolina Panthers. So maybe if these guys can get bent over a time or two, and these new prospects can set a trend of, look, these aren't the prospects of late. Some of these guys aren't fighting for a payday. Some of these guys have already bought their mom a new house. They've already put their sister or brother, in a new car. They don't need the NFL payday to get that done. And so they're going to fight for their best interest in their career because they've seen what happens to a guy like Justin Fields who goes to an incompetent organization. His career is ruined. And so I, for one, am okay with billionaire owners getting the short end of the stick. And because I don't think this is going to be something that's common, I'm okay with it happening once or twice. I'm okay with the Giants being told, no, piss off. No one wants to come play for you. Because maybe they'll rethink things. Maybe they'll start investing into their organization, into their facilities. Maybe they'll let the football minds do the football minds. Maybe they'll finally invest in a data analytics department, like so many of these forward-thinking winning franchises are doing. So again, even if Rich Paul's actions with LeBron James Jr. sets some sort of precedent in the NFL, good. For once in a very long time, I agree with Mike Florio and think he put out some really good work here in this article, Because not only should we think about it, we should expect it and we should applaud it. We have to remember when these things happen that they're not happening all the time. And if we get too bent out of shape over somebody trying to force their way into a good situation, we may stop and not take it further and think about the ramifications of a team missing out on a generational prospect because of their dysfunction. So we will end the show real quick by giving an update on the Brandon Aiyuk situation. There's a quote that has been circling around, and I've seen probably 5 or 6 social media aggregators already paraphrase it in such a way that makes it sound different than it was. So let's break down real quick what Brandon Aiyuk said, because to me, this is a big nothing burger, but it's been going around the block. So on the Pivot podcast, Brandon Aiyuk, when asked about where he's going to play next season, he said, quote, probably a Niners uniform. If not a Niners uniform, probably a Washington Commanders uniform. If not a Washington Commanders uniform, probably a Steelers uniform, end quote. So the real headline is in the first sentence. He's probably going to be a 49er this season. So the social media aggregators out there are saying Brandon Aiyuk hints at playing for the Commanders. Brandon Aiyuk hints at playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But because it won't generate as many clicks, they don't say the headline that Brandon Aiyuk gave is, I am probably going to be a 49er this season. And this confirms the suspicions I've had all along. They're not letting him go. While what Brandon Aiyuk has been saying has been troubling at points in terms of his future with the 49ers, it's all seemed a little gamey to me. Usually, when things like this happen, we don't see casual social media posts of Instagram live sessions with Jaden Daniels saying they don't want me, bro. Like, that's not we see Brandon Aiyuk has demanded a trade, or extension talks have come to a halt. Brandon Aiyuk is offended with how he's being treated on the market. These are usually the headlines we see, but instead we've just been seeing these nuggets that almost to me just reads that Aiyuk is just messing with the 49ers. Just saying like, hey, there are people interested in me if you guys aren't. There are people who will trade for me and give me the money I want. So if you guys don't want to pay me, I'll have you trade me, and don't worry, you can get rid of me. It's all this little game for him to get the bag. And I, for one, again, applaud it, because Aiyuk deserves that bag. He absolutely deserves that bag. And the 49ers are being petty. They're acting like dynasty managers, where they don't want to retain their current player on the open market for his value. They treat him like a wide receiver 1 internally. But then when some team comes calling, they treat him like a wide receiver 2 internally. And then some team comes calling, and all of a sudden Brandon Aiyuk is a wide receiver 1. Well, okay. If you want wide receiver 1 value, why are you treating him like a wide receiver 2? And so I think it's obvious that the bag is coming for Aiyuk, because if it weren't, there would be more interest in the 49ers in trade talks. But it seems the only person interested in trade talks right now is Brandon Aiyuk and teammates of the teams that he is hinting at playing for. The 49ers have still been vocal saying that talks are going well, and they have all the plans in the world to retain him on their roster this season. So I'm saying it now. I've said it before, but I'm saying it now with definity. I'm definitively saying it now. On June 29th, Brandon Aiyuk will be a San Francisco 49er all the way through this season and all the way through next season. If you disagree with me, let me know below. Where do you think Brandon Aiyuk plays next season?
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.